is Suzanne went through the website and basically took some pictures off the website. We do this every year, and for some of you it's kind of a redundancy, but for you new folks and people that have never had bees before, we're trying to help you get them overwintered for success next year. Not everything you're going to do here is going to save them, but it can. It will help. So one of the things that we'll start with the 10 things that you can do to help the bees survive winter. And there's a handout here going around, just as a reminder, you guys can hand scratch on it or whatever. But what we'll cover is candy boards, ventilation. We will cover mite treatment and the shelter, off the ground issues, stuff like that. Go ahead, Suzanne, next slide. So the first thing we want to do from here out, and I'm going to say October is probably the best month for the varroa mites to deal with them. Wait till that queen starts to lay, or starts to slow down and lay. You can test them if you want, but my general opinion is this, is that all the bees have got them. So, I mean, you can test if you want, but now, that being said, when we first made these slide presentations, I didn't treat, never have treated. This year we're going to treat for them. So we are going to treat with oxalic acid, which is very easy, very quick. Dan's had pretty good success with it. Steve's had good success with it. Rick has. So, Mel, yeah. Here again, do follow the instructions and make sure for safety issues that you wear a respirator because that stuff is pretty toxic. The club doesn't have a vaporizer, but there's enough of us now in the club that will have them, so if you need to borrow one or whatever. Rick,
I was just going to say about the counting the mites, one thing I'm going to try this year is when I treat them with oxalic acid to have a clean mite count board in my hive, and then some of those ones that have a really high drop from the oxalic acid are going to get it again in a week, whereas some of those ones that didn't have as much won't get it again. Kind of balancing out what Dewey Karen was saying about, you know, the oxalic acid is, you know, you probably don't want to use it much more than you actually have to, but if you've got a large problem, the oxalic acid isn't dealing with the ones under the capping, so to maybe follow like what Cody was saying, like to treat, it was every week for 3 weeks, right?
Every 5 days for 3 weeks.
well, the theory behind that is to break that root cycle.
Yeah.
But see, like Dewey in his presentation, and I agreed with him, but then I kind of disagreed with him. I didn't say anything to him. Was, you know, they don't want to treat till November, December when there is no root. He says it actually works better when there is no root, but you can treat now for them.
Yeah, and I think you've got a big problem.
But that's the 3 treatment philosophy.
Yeah.
And I know there's other chemicals out there that you can use. I think the oxalic acid is the best on the market there is right now. I know a couple years ago when it first come out, I was kind of wishy-washy on it, but I really think that it's the way to go, and we're going to start. Dan, you've had good success with it.
I have, and I've used enough other medicines along with it. I rotate my medicine really. It's hard for me to tell which is working and how effective each of them is, but I know that as a combined effort, they all seem to work.
Yes?
How much oxalic acid do you use when you vaporize it?
Well, just roughly, I don't have an actual cup measure, a teaspoon per brood box would be real close, correct? Yeah, it's a quarter.
It's a gram, yeah.
Teaspoon is a quarter teaspoon.
No, it's about a third or a quarter of a teaspoon, I think.
A quarter teaspoon.
Quarter
Yeah.
teaspoon, is it quarter teaspoon?
Yeah.
Wasn't it a half a teaspoon or a gram per brood box?
Yeah.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Per brood, yeah.
1/2 teaspoon or 1 gram per brood. I think that's what it was.
One thing that my vaporizer had was 2 little serving
I didn't get a cup with mine, a measuring cup. So I gotta be smart. Do a conversion.
Just borrow your wife's measure.
I'd add some of, you can buy a vaporizer from many sources, or you can make them, which some of us had. And I made mine out of one of the 12-volt coffee heaters, and it gets a lot hotter, a lot quicker than the store-bought ones. I mean, literally it'll boil and vaporize, a quarter teaspoon of oxalic acid in less than a minute, and it's all in vapor. It's just so. And I've had friends with the store-bought ones, and they're just, a minute and a half, 2 minutes before they're vaporizing it. So
Right.
it's something to be aware of. You've got to time your vapor, I guess, your vaporizer before you use it in the hive, so you know. And you don't have to close the hive for 10 minutes. I really think that if you close it for 2 or 3 minutes.
4 to 6 minutes is about
Yeah.
average, I think. You leave it in for about 4 or 5 minutes, don't you?
I button up the front, I give it a minute to heat up, and I count to 120. And
Yep.
I pull the front off.
Yep. Yeah. So a couple minutes is all you really need. I mean, once that vaporizes, it's going to be there or it isn't.
The crystals are reforming on the bees, on the mites, and that's what's killing them. So as soon as it's cool enough to crystallize, oxalic acid is doing its job.
Yeah.
The other thing too, and it really doesn't go along with rural mice, but we do need to talk about yellow jackets too. And I know that there's been some people out there have asked me, well, how's your yellow jackets? Well, there's a lot of them, at least from what I've seen. We normally don't close our hives down until about October. I went out and closed 15 hives down this morning to 3 inches because the yellow jackets are so bad. I was hanging a trap on one, and the yellow jackets were as thick as the honeybees. They were boiling, waiting to get in that trap. I mean, it's just crazy. So, and there's really not a whole lot you can do other than reduce that interest down there. And reduce it right down to 1 inch or 2, so those bees have got less to defend. If your boxes are fairly heavy on stores right now, take the feed off them. Quit feeding them. That feed's drawing those yellow jackets in. So those are a couple of things that you can do now. Because the yellow jackets will kill those hives. Or can. Or they'll reduce the numbers so severely that they won't make the winter.
When you say that if you get feeding draws them in, you mean like on the boardman?
Boardmans are known for that.
Yeah, that's what
If you're feeding inside, the top hive, like Dan feeds and stuff, they're not as bad. Or if you put the boardman inside and put another super on top and close it, then that's okay. But if you stick them on the outside, like some of us do, it draws bees.
Yes, they sneak in on the side.
Yeah, they come on side. So, and we try, would you go back to that first slide? If you can, keep going. That one. Now, like here, see, these enclosements here should actually be over here.
Yeah.
So the bees have to go in and around that. So that's one thing that I've changed over the years. Okay, so next slide. Number 2, if you see nosema, generally this time of the year you won't see a lot of nosema. Think of nosema as a cold, in our terms, an ammonia, so to speak, and they defecate all over the front of your boxes like this. Now, Suzanne and Peter had this happen 2 years ago,
2 years ago, yeah.
and you guys treated with nosema, didn't you?
Yeah, we treated with fumigillin, and I think it saved that
Yeah,
colony.
yeah. And the fumigillin is an antibiotic. Years back, we used to put that in our sugar water at the end of the fall every year, just because, But the problem with it is it's an antibiotic. And like all antibiotics, you will become immune to them eventually. So we quit doing that a number of years back. And unless we see the dysentery that goes along with the nosema, we don't treat for it. Dan?
Yeah, one other problem with it is it's really expensive.
Yeah. Yeah, the fumigillin, little bitty bottle, I can't remember, it's 30, 40 bucks.
Half gram,
Yeah, it's just,
What was that, Godfrey?
a half gram is over $20.
Yeah, it's expensive. But I will say this, if you do treat for them, usually the fumigillin will knock it down and the bees will pull out. So, Number 3, evaluate your food stores. Well, how do we do that? Well, we open the tops and smoke them a little bit and open the tops and look. On your weaker hives, you know, I've asked, or had a lot of people say, well, when should we combine these hives? And yada, yada, yada. You got to check, you have to assess for food stores. And, you know, are they light on honey? Are they light on pollen? If they are, you're going to have to feed them or combine them. If we normally don't combine hives unless there's only 2 or 3 frames of bees. If you got a full brood box of bees, you can overwinter those full brood boxes. You got to feed them, but you can't overwinter. What we will do, and I did this here just the other day on one hive, is I went in and removed and placed those stores, honey brood or honey pollen brood. I redid the whole top box because they had it wasn't right for me. So for me, I changed it. So the best order again is honey on the outside, then your pollen, then the brood in the center. Dan, what do you see?
You know, what I have this year is mostly splits that I've done earlier on in package bees. And some of them put it on really well and some of them haven't. And so for the last 6 weeks, I've been trying to build up artificially the brood, the pollen, and the honey. To do that, I've given each of the weaker hives a half a pollen patty and a gallon of corn syrup, or not corn syrup, sugar water.
Sugar water.
I'm still thinking about the honey I made.
Yeah.
No, sugar water, no, corn syrup in it. And I've done that 4 times. And so most of them have built up. Now, there's a few that haven't. And, you know, they just might not be viable. I don't know. But for the bulk of my bees, they've built up quite well. But I've been, you know, substituting them because, you know, if they got a late start, they didn't do it very well. You know, I was doing splits clear in June.
Your late starts, your swarms and stuff like that, generally they struggle. You know, they really do. You had a question?
How much honey do you leave the bees and make sure that they have?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, you know, we've always tried in the past to leave that 40 to 60 pounds, if we can.
So that's like, what, 2 brood boxes?
Well, a 9-inch brood box would be full, super food box, would be that 60, 70 pounds. Maybe 80 if they were all 10 frames full.
So if I have 2 super brood boxes, that would probably do it.
Full of honey?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. The best way that I do is I just go behind the hive, I pick the whole box up, just tip it, see how heavy it is. Godfrey?
One word of caution, if you have 2 brood boxes on there, be sure to lift the top brood box off, because some of the hives during the summer they'll move everything up. And you think, well, a nice full store, and you look in the bottom super, it's
There's nothing there. It's empty.
Yeah. So.
Why they do that is nature's way, because they move up during the winter.
Right.
But if you've got, you know, if your boxes are that 50 pounds for 2 broods, I think you're okay, but we still supplement. You know, and right now we're putting that gallon, roughly a gallon a week on them. But you got to remember that most of the hives we pull the honey off of. Now we don't strip them all the way down, but so those light ones and even the heavy ones we're still feeding. You know, but now with the yellow jackets coming the way they are, I'm going to quit feeding. We're leaving for Idaho next week, so I'm going to give them a week break. I won't feed them. And when I come back, hopefully the weather cools back down a little bit, and I'll go back to feeding. And then we'll make that transition to the candy boards before hunting season, October-ish.
Do you put the pollen when you put the candy board on?
Pardon me?
Do you add pollen when you
We don't. I know that Dan does. Suzanne, she's fed pollen patties. Well, I never have fed them. Whatever.
One nice thing
Question
about
up
pollen
here.
patty is it builds up brood.
Yes.
If you are short on bees, feed them a pollen patty and it'll help build up the brood.
Another thing is, one of the studies that Steve Shepard did a few years ago showed that when bees have a mite infestation, that compromises their capacity to synthesize protein. So if you give them pollen patties, that helps to supplement what they may be losing if they've had varroa at the hive.
Good point.
Mine still doesn't get quite a ball.
There was a question up here.
Yeah, Kevin, what do you, for us new people, what do you mean by you don't strip them down all the way? What is that?
Well, a lot of commercial folks, when they're in honey production, they strip all the honey off them.
Anything that's capped.
Anything that's capped comes off. We don't do that. You know, we try and leave that second brood box. If it's got honey in it, we leave it. We don't mess with it. And some of them, I think we've got 3 boxes, 3 hives that we left the honey supers on. Basically because of the sheer fact that there was so many bees in the boxes. You know, you go to pull them honey supers off in July, and there's so many bees, and you kick them all out, they have no place to go. They hang on the front of the hive for the next month before they die. So, you know, and you can overwinter them with those honey supers on. Peggy?
I still get confused on the sugar water feeding in this late summer, fall. When was it supposed to start? And I thought there were issues about not getting the honey too watery and too, you know.
Well, generally, we don't start feeding until September, generally. We don't pull honey till July, August, on an average, you know, that's just normal, July, August. And then after that, and they all settle back down, then we'll go back in September, and we start feeding. You can feed them 1-to-1, and then you can move it over to 2-to-1, but it gets pretty expensive because you're putting twice the sugar in. So we try and build that weight up, you know, 5-10 pounds if we can, because we know at the end of September we're going to transition from the wet feed because they're going to quit eating it because the temperatures are going to start going down, and they just won't eat the wet, cold food. So then we transition over to the hard candy in October, along with the moisture board.
So you don't start feeding until after you pull whatever the last of the honey is?
Correct. Yeah. You don't want to feed during a nectar flow. You just don't. We quit feeding when we come out of spring and we're getting ready to set them up and get them going for summer. We feed them a gallon or 2 to get them kind of going with Honeybee Healthy and get the queens excited and get them going. And then we pull that feed off of them no later than the end of April. I got a question. Hang on, I got a question. Go ahead.
Have you ever, instead of candy boards, just put a piece of paper up top and just put regular sugar in there? And then,
You could, yeah, you can do that.
and in the spring, you can just pour the extra out?
Well, not a lot, but there's been people that have done that over the past. And how they used to do it is they would lay a piece of newspaper in there, they'd squirt it down with a squirt bottle with water, they'd sprinkle their sugar in, squirt a little more, sprinkle it in, and then it kind of makes a cake. And then the bees come up and eat it, same thing, it's just a dry food, but what you'll find with that, the bees think it's foreign, and they haul it out. They do, yeah. Godfrey?
I was going to say that one of the things to think of feeding is the first feeding should be when you extract your honey, any honey you extract, you put the wet supers on and let them clean it up. Try to put honey there,
Yeah.
let them put that back in their brood box. So
Right.
you want your wax clean and dry anyway. Let them clean it out, take them off, and then.
So what Godfrey's saying is like what we do, and I don't know how Dan does it, but I know when we pull supers and we extract, we take the cappings and we throw them out on a piece of cardboard or a board and set them out. Let the bees clean that up first, and then we take those honey supers. We don't, on some of them we do put it back on the hives. We don't number the boxes. We just take them out and we stand them up in a row. We take them out to each apiary, and we'll put 10 on an apiary on here, and we'll 5 over here, you know, and then we just leave them there for 2, 3, 4 days. Hopefully the weather's nice and it's windy and it's warm. The bees will clean them up, and then we store them and we seal them up. And when I mean seal them, we seal them completely top, bottom, no cracks, no nothing. Some people will put, help me out here.
Chlorobenzene or whatever.
Yeah, it's for the wax moth.
Paradichlorobenzene.
Mothballs.
Paradichlorobenzene.
Yeah, but mothballs.
Mothball.
Yeah, but it's not the regular mothball. The regular
Different, yeah.
mothballs are naphtha, and that will really imprint it in the wax. Well, the paradichlorobenzene will waft out when you air it.
Now, we've been lucky, we haven't had a wax moth issue. But we're pretty diligent when we go to put those honey supers back up. We seal them completely, top, bottom, everything. And we've been pretty fortunate so far.
And they can really be nasty.
Oh, once wax moths get in here.
They got me last year.
Did they? Yeah. Suzanne, next ring.
Kevin, is there anything wrong with putting a frame of cap honey from a strong hive into a weak hive?
I wouldn't have a problem with it, no.
As long as the strong hive doesn't have any kind of disease in it that could
Correct.
be moved over, yeah.
If you knew that capped honey was good, you know, there was no issues with it, I wouldn't have a problem. In fact, there's been many times that we've actually done that. You know, we put honey in on from different hives, you know. And it's worked. We've never had a failure with it yet, so. Any other questions? Okay, so here we go back to feeding the bees that fly down stores. So if you got that box, that 2 brood boxes that's only weighing at 25, 30 pounds, they struggled all year, you got to get some feed on it or combine them, or you're going to have to do something where you will lose them. And here again, we generally right now, we've been feeding 1 gallon per week. Dan, how much you feeding now?
I was just telling Rick, this fall I fed 2,500 pounds of sugar.
My stock is C&H.
What hive?
My stock is C&H.
Yeah, the guy that stocks at Walmart knows me by first name.
You go in at night and get it.
Yeah.
Well, if you do that, you don't get a free lunch.
Yeah.
But yeah, spent a lot. I've gone through my hives 4 different times.
So Dan uses the top.
2,500 pounds.
Dan uses the top feeder. How many gallons? 2?
Well, I've been, during the summer I'll use the top feeder, and I tried to use it this spring and it didn't work very good, but I've switched over now to where I'm using the trough feeder.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And so,
You throw all the top feeders away?
no, I'll use them during the summer. They do work pretty good during the summer when it's nice and warm.
Yeah.
But for the fall and stuff, when I try to get them all contained, I'm just using the trough feeder.
What's the problem with the top or the bucket feeder?
Well, if you have a weak hive, small hive, and they aren't crawling up into the feeder, the sugar will just sit up there and it might ferment.
We tried, you know, when I first got into beekeeping, I fed crazy. And over the years, I've kind of tried to get away from feeding them as much. The best time to feed them is a little bit in the spring and a little bit in the fall. And if you can get those bees overwintered, they can usually kind of do it themselves, generally.
I don't know what the composition is because I haven't asked or analyzed, but they do sell syrup, which is very close to 2-to-1 density out at Beeline, so you can buy it. It's out for $3.50 a gallon, which is less than what you would pay for sugar to make a 2-to-1 ratio.
When did they start this year doing it?
Yeah. I don't know if it had any corn syrup in it or not. I didn't ask Harold specifically, but I don't think it does. And you know, to make a gallon, you're going to need at least 10 pounds of sugar to 5 pounds of water. That would make about a gallon, which will cost you $4 to $4.50. They sell $50 a gallon.
Well, a 25-pound bag of sugar is $12.
Yeah, so 50 cents a pound.
And you can make 5 gallons out of a 25-pound bag. So that'd be 2.
At 2-to-1?
No, that's 1.
Right, so 2-to-1, it would be higher. So what I'm saying, their syrup is close to 2-to-1. So the cost is pretty similar. As a matter of fact, the syrup might be a little bit of saving, and if it doesn't have corn syrup, and you want to save yourself time, that's a nice convenient way to do. If you just have a hive or 2.
Did you hear something?
I was just going to say, the reason I like feeding in the fall is I don't want them to go through their winter stores and then have winter come and they don't have anything left. So I figure I feed them the liquid stuff in the fall while they can take it, and then they haven't gone through what they really need.
The other thing, too, go ahead, Steve.
I didn't really hear what I was going to say. What did he say that Harold has? What does Harold have out there?
He has syrup. He has 250-gallon tanks of syrup, and it's about the same density and mixture as the 2-to-1 sugar. He sells it for $3.50 a gallon. I didn't ask them specifically, and I didn't analyze it to see if it has corn syrup or not. You just take your containers out there, your gallon containers, and they'll fill them right there the minute you want. It's exciting because sometimes the robber bees are hanging around there, you have to kind of dive into it.
That's good.
And he's got his eyes right there close by.
Is that a pound of sugar per gallon?
No.
1 to 1? 3 gallons of water, 25-pound bag of sugar. Okay. If you take a 5-gallon bucket, that's what I do, and I put 3 gallons, dump the bag in and stir it up, and you've got 1 to 1.
Where do you cook that in?
I don't. Just hot tap water.
Yeah, 1 to 1 was easy to do, just 1 to 1.
Yeah.
2 to 1, you got to do.
2 to 1, you might have to heat it. But, Bill?
You put the Honeybee Healthy in this time of year?
Yeah. We put the Honeybee Healthy in the spring and in the summer, you know, to help supplement it. And even in the candy board, when we make the candy board, we still put it in.
When do you consider cooler weather to go to 2 to 1?
Well, probably the end of this month.
Okay.
That's 60 degrees, because the problem with the
Daytime
1-to-1,
temperature.
yeah, the problem with the 1-to-1 right now is they can't get it dehydrated all.
Right.
Right, I'm feeding two.
And they won't get it capped. So you don't want to give them too much. See, that's what a lot of folks make that mistake. I did when I first got in it. You feed them, and you actually can feed them too much because they can't get it capped.
I would
Yes.
feed 2 to 1 now.
Yeah, 2 to 1. Well, next week it's going to be in that 80s again, but yeah.
I just want to clarify, I'm sorry, I'm really tired. When you're saying the 1-to-1, you're talking weight, not volume?
Correct. Yeah. And it's close even in volume. It's relatively close because I used to take a quart jar 1-to-1.
Okay, that's how I've been doing it.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're fine.
And it's real close. I mean, give or take. So. Yeah. Dan, I think, don't you do the 5-gallon bucket thing like I do?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I mean, right now, you can go 2 to 1 right now. It's not going to hurt anything, but just don't overfeed them. Don't give them too much. But bring their weights up a little bit. Candy boards, you know, I'll start probably the end of this month, give or take. And a 25-pound bag of sugar will make 5 candy boards for me. Because it's 5 pounds per candy board. And then I split them in half, and I put half of one, 2.5 pounds, and 2.5 pounds on high. That 2.5 pounds usually will go a couple months. So about 3 times through the winter, we go in and supplement them again. Yes?
If they have 50 or 60 pounds of honey on them, you don't need the candy board, right?
Well, you wouldn't think so, but we still supplement them. I guess because we're bored, I don't know. Well, it's cheap insurance. Think of it as insurance. It's cheap insurance. Because I've seen those bees. I'm sure Godfrey's seen it. Everybody's in here that's had bees for any length of time. They can move straight up in that box, and they'll starve right in the center of it. They've got stores on both sides. They don't move horizontally. Well, they go straight up.
Or have a bottom box full of honey and then the front top box.
Yep. Yeah. So just think of it as cheap insurance. Now, I don't make, excuse me, there's more recipes on the website. The dry sugar that was mentioned, that's one way to dry feed them. You can make a cake, and then you can make the hard candy. Go ahead and go to the next one. No. Yeah, we'll get back to it. So then the number 6, we're going to protect the hives from the wind and the rain. Suzanne's got, these are Peter and Suzanne's hives here. And as you can see, they've got the waffle boards on top to keep it just a drip better, keep the rain off of them. They've got them lifted up off the ground. Now they don't have them wrapped or taped. And when I say taped, a lot of people, I know Steve does it, we've done it, we just tape the seams with duct tape.
We do that now too.
Oh, you do it now?
Yeah. It's especially important to your boxes are not exactly square. So
Yeah.
if you've got an 8 millimeter, that's
Yeah.
just enough to get water
Yep.
in.
The other, excuse me, the other thing that I do, I know Steve did it last year, I don't know if he'll do it again this year, is we wrap them like they do back east with roofing paper. My theory is on that out here in the west coast is that radiant heat on those cold days, that sun comes out, that degree or two, does it really help them? I think it kind of does. But it's a little added expense and it's a little bit of time, and, you know, but so that helps to keep that moisture out of those hives. Some people will, and I have over the years, sometimes you put them in a cover. Dan's, I think he says they don't seem to do quite as well under cover. But what do you think?
You know, I think if you block the sunlight, they don't do very well. I think if you have it kind of covered, but still where they're getting that low horizon sun, because the sun's, you know, clear down the lower angles, I think it's still okay. But, you know, if you have the rain coming down this way and there's sun coming down this way, if you can get the sunlight coming this way and shield the rain coming down this way, I think it's all right.
Right.
That's one thing I'd like to mention. For wintering, I think one of the most important things, be sure you don't have your hive in a place where the winter sun never gets to. It's critical that during the shortest days, they get some sunlight on clear days.
Right. So hive placement in the spring, unless you move them, is a very critical thing. Because you do want that sunlight in the winter.
Even a couple hours.
Yeah, like Dan said, that sun, excuse me, is lower in the winter than it is in the summer. Here we go.
Are you running for president, Hillary?
Don't get me started.
Oh, by the way, if anybody wants the stickers, I've got a political sticker here we can all get behind. Elect huge swarm of bees, make America full of bees again.
There you go.
Yeah.
I put it on my Christmas list.
So the other thing that we started doing a number of years back was a moisture control box. And I guess from what I hear, we were kind of the first ones that did it around here. You know, when I first come out with this thing and done it, I was in the fire service. And you know, when we got to a home that was on fire, the first thing we did was ventilate it. And everybody says, why did you go up on the roof and cut a hole in that roof? Well, it's very simple, to get the smoke out of the house. Well, with the moisture, you can't get the moisture out of those boxes. So what I come up with, and I mean it wasn't real hard, is these moisture control boxes. And this one here was made out of a honey super, an old 4-inch honey super. 4-inch honey supers work really, really well if you need one. And we put screen in underneath. There'll be more photos in here. And then we layer them in with burlap and cedar shavings. And what happens is the moisture from the condensement of the colony in this hive wicks to the top of that box. Without those moisture control issues on top, that moisture wicks to the top, hits that inner lid, and rains back down on the bees. And kills them. We found that out the hard way for many, many years. I remember Grant, we went over in the middle of December one year, and he says, we lost all the bees. And I'm thinking, how did we lose all those bees? And we went over there and we opened up those hives, and I'm literally kidding you not, there must have been a gallon of water in each box. And that's, I thought there's got to be a different way.
Kevin, what about garden tops?
Pardon me?
What about garden top, the slant tops?
Gordon Bellevue uses garden tops, and I'm telling you, every time he talks about them, he loves them.
Yeah, I live in the woods. I have huge problems with moisture, and so I tried, a couple of years ago, I tried one of these, I tried something different on every one of my hives, and the only one that was absolutely bone dry was the one with the garden top, and that's all I did to it. And it just works just like your attic. The moisture that does go up there, when it hits the top, it runs down to the side so it doesn't go back in the hives, and then the airflow goes through there, it evaporates, and it works great.
Yeah.
So I've switched.
The only bad thing about them is
they're more expensive.
They're more expensive. Cost. So if you got one or two hives, it's a good thing. If you got 150 like Dan's got, it's pretty spendy. You know, what are they, about $50, $60?
About $50 a piece, $50 at Harold's Beeline.
Yeah. This moisture control box here, when we first did it, and I haven't built any for a number of years, but you know, it was like $5. Not very much. And it works. Thank you.
And the setup in that picture then, so you got two large boxes on the bottom, the moisture boxes on the top, and then that's a medium in the middle?
You got two brews, two 9-inch, and then you got an 8-inch here, which is a medium. This is Suzanne's, and then this is the moisture control box that goes on the top.
Okay.
Basically, we had a real strong colony that had filled out 2 deeps and a medium, and we didn't want to take the medium away because it was full of food supplies, but we put the moisture control box on top.
We'll show you some more slides here as we go into it. So Dan uses this type of moisture control board.
Yeah, we can pass that around if you like. What this is, it's a Man Lake product, and here you go, good. It's just like a felt board. So I'll pass one around. We got one up here in front, and they cost $7 or something like that with Man Lake. I think that's too much. I'd like to figure out where to buy this stuff by the sheet, so I can cut my own, and I'll bet you can buy the sheets for $20 or something like that.
I know that with this type of
pretty
box
much
here,
similar to soundproofing board.
you still have to maintenance this in the winter. You're still going to get moisture collected on that inner lid.
Anyhow, these to me have worked pretty well, and there's really one nice thing that I like about them is they fit right underneath my telescopic cover, and so the bees don't seem to mind them. You can see that there's a little propolis on the center of that one where the bees are coming up through the inner cover. And yeah, I like them. It's a quick way of doing it. I think your method probably works just as good or better, but my method is fast.
When do you
So-
put those on?
What was that?
When do you put them on?
We'll put them on the end of this month.
You change out the cedar during the winter?
I'm sorry?
Do you change out the cedar during the winter?
No. Well,
If there's wet stuff.
it depends on how wet it is, because it will collect the moisture from the condensation, from the warmth and the cold dumped onto these. The other thing that you're going to have to do if you use this method is you're going to have to change out this burlap on the top, because it'll get wet. Because what happens is that moisture whips through that box, collects on that inner lid, and it still rains back down. And it will get the top, the burlap gets wet, and some of the shavings will get wet. But generally, you don't have to. Yes?
So you have burlap underneath, you can shape thing and a burlap on the top?
Yep.
Okay.
Which you'll see as we move through these.
Okay.
But